We all know how easily people judge by appearances. The fog was thick when a glossy black Bentley rolled into the yacht auction lot. Valet quickly stepped aside. Out stepped a wealthy woman wrapped in expensive charcoal wool. Her expensive heels clicked loudly on the wet stone, sounding like someone who never bothers looking down at the world. Just 2 spaces over, a rusty navy blue Ford F-150 sat quietly idling. The man beside it wore a plain flannel shirt, quietly tucking a worn leather envelope under his arm. He locked the heavy door by hand. The wealthy CEO sneered at the old truck, raising her voice so every worker around could hear her smug disdain. The staff parking lot is out back. Security can show you where to go. The understated man simply looked up at her in total calm silence. Then he quietly walked right past her, toward the entrance. She had no idea that in 90 minutes, the auctioneer's final gavel would drop in honor of his name. Inside, the grand bidding hall was already filling up. Hundreds of leather chairs faced a polished oak podium, while a giant screen displayed the luxury yacht listings. Glowing chandeliers reflected off pristine crystal champagne glasses that no one had even touched yet. The room smelled heavily of expensive polish and old money. The proud CEO claimed a front-row seat with paddle 14. Her assistant sat down right beside her, holding a tablet and ready to work. The quiet father sat further back, holding absolutely no paddle. His catalog was open to just 1 page, showcasing the massive motor yacht. A custom superyacht with a starting bid of $48 million. A woman in her mid-40s hurried down his row with a clipboard. Her badge read auction registrar, and she walked by without even breaking her stride. She quietly slipped a black coffee onto his armrest and kept moving forward. From the front, the arrogant CEO spotted this and frowned in confusion. Top officials never serve coffee, especially not to an ordinary stranger. The bidding began with smaller vessels, including some vintage dinghies and old tenders. The CEO paid no attention. She pressed her phone to her ear, whispering furiously to her team. "The board is watching live. My absolute limit is $92 million. But look closer." 8 rows back, the understated man calmly opened his worn envelope. He slowly pulled out a single document and a small wooden paddle. The paddle read 001, a number hidden from the public. It was the exclusive owner's paddle, reserved only for elite figures holding direct, recorded interest in this multi-million-dollar ship. A quiet courtesy of the elite world, completely hidden from the arrogant crowd. Camille snapped her fingers in irritation. Who is that man sitting in flannel? Her assistant searched the high-end database frantically, but found absolutely nothing about him. A mere spectator, she sneered, her mouth tightening into a thin, angry line. But casual viewers are never allowed inside this exclusive main hall. The auctioneer suddenly announced the primary mega yacht would sell in 15 minutes. A massive photo of the custom yacht flashed on the screen, looking incredibly majestic at sunrise. The quiet father ignored his coffee and catalog, focusing entirely on his masterpiece. Camille abruptly stood up and marched outside to take another desperate phone call. Passing the lobby, she barked into her phone, "Tell my uncle to relax. Nobody can outbid me except Hartwell himself, and we both know who actually holds that name." She insisted Hartwell had been dead for years. Mara Quinn stood just 2 steps away, a simple folder hiding a world-shaking truth. She just glanced up, checked her papers, and kept completely quiet. Let's see how real power operates. Wyatt calmly walked back to his seat. He completely ignored Camille. The chime sounded and Lot 47 appeared on the screen. 218 feet of teak deck, twin diesel engines, and a rare hand-carved wood ceiling. Camille took a slow breath, poised to strike like she owned the world. Opening at $48 million, the auctioneer announced. Paddle 14 flew up instantly. 50. A phone bidder countered, whispered through the assistant's quiet headset. 58, Camille snapped. 62, the phone returned. 70, then 78. Camille raised her bid again. A tense pause, then 84. The room grew quiet. The auctioneer scanned the wealthy crowd. $84 million going once. Camille wore a smug grin, confident her money had bought her another victory. But from the back row, that cheap wooden paddle number 1 was raised. The auctioneer hesitated for a second, looking toward the main desk in disbelief. Mara nodded once. "We have a bid of $86 million from paddle 1. Camille spun around in shock, glaring at the man in the dusty flannel shirt. He lowered his paddle, ignoring her completely. 88, she spat. 90, he countered instantly. Terrified of losing, she prepared to bid 92 million. That was her absolute limit. 92. Her hand trembled slightly as she raised her paddle one last time. Wyatt sat in perfect silence. The auctioneer slowly called out the final warning. 92 million going twice. That simple wooden paddle did not rise again. Sold to paddle 14 for 92 million. The heavy wooden gavel slammed down. Camille stood up triumphantly, casting a mocking glance back toward the cheap seats. She believed her massive bank account made her superior to the man she disdained. But Wyatt simply stood up and walked toward the registrar's desk without fear. Mara opened her simple folder and laid the papers flat before his eyes. Camille watched them, while her assistant whispered joyful congratulations into her ear. The assistant leaned in to whisper. The auctioneer stopped cold and tapped his microphone to clear his throat. Ladies and gentlemen, a mandatory disclosure. Under Bylaw 14.3, Lot 47 carries a right of first refusal for the original consignor filed before today, and the holder has chosen to use it. This yacht will not be awarded to paddle 14. The room erupted into chaos. You and I can easily imagine their shock. Miss Vance, who is the owner? The registrar clicked on his microphone. The true owner is Wyatt James Hartwell, sole heir to the massive Hartwell Marine Trust. Camille turned pale as paper. The nasty words she used to mock his worn-out clothes echoed in her mind. The famous father had passed away, but his quiet, incredibly wealthy son stood right there. He was alive, wearing that same faded flannel shirt she had laughed at earlier. You see, the man she mocked just reclaimed his yacht without spending a dime. But the cameras captured the one small detail the arrogant crowd missed completely. Wyatt did not even look at her. He stared up at the photo of his family's yacht, a single tear falling down his weathered cheek. True value is hidden deep within, not worn on your sleeve. He wiped it away as Camille, completely broken by her own pride, sank into her seat. Brenda froze right there, whispering, "Who?" completely shaken by the truth. "Told you Hartwell was dead," Camille replied dryly. "My Uncle Reggie." Wyatt grabbed his navy folder, walking calmly back down the quiet aisle. The quiet, underestimated billionaire paused for a brief moment at row 2. He picked his cheap paper coffee cup off the armrest, leaving it on the empty auction seat right next to Camille. The very same cheap cup Mara got him. He didn't even look at her. "Empty cups travel light, ma'am. You should definitely know that." He kept walking. 3 days later, Camille drove all the way to Bristol. She skipped her flashy Bentley, grabbing a dusty silver Audi she had not driven in 9 months. The humbled executive definitely did her research before crossing that state line. You and I know true value always hides. Hartwell Marine, 4 generations, $340 million, before Wyatt quietly stripped it and vanished 4 years ago. His actual headquarters was no shiny corporate tower, just a weathered hangar with a rusty tin roof facing a plain wooden pier. A mix of turpentine, marine paint, and sea salt hit her at the entrance. Faint country music drifted from an old radio in the background. The mysterious buyer knelt beside a 32-foot fishing boat, checking the propeller shaft. Holding a wrench in his hand and a gauge in the other, he did not even look up. "You're parked in the wrong spot. Customer lot is around the front." Camille froze, feeling the sting of her own arrogant words thrown right back. She came to Bristol for 2 distinct reasons, though she only admitted to one. First, a corporate apology, because her board watched her humiliate him on the live stream. She desperately needed a signature to save face, but the second reason remained hidden. Let's be honest, she just wanted to know how she completely misjudged a true billionaire. "Hartwell, I came to offer. An apology needing a signature isn't a real apology." He calmly shifted his tool, never even needing to raise his quiet voice. "Try again when you can show up here without a notary." She stayed put, letting her eyes scan the dusty, humble shop walls. There hung a photo of a younger Wyatt in navy dress blues, a massive aircraft carrier behind him. The plaque underneath read USS Gerald R. Ford. A prestigious meritorious service medal hung quietly inside a glass shadow box. And taped low on the back wall, a child's crayon drawing of a long superyacht, with the name Norabel written across the bow in red. "Why?" she asked softly. "Did you name the luxury boat Norabel?" He still did not look up. "My daughter's name is Nora. My wife's name was Belle." Belle died 4 years ago. The room went silent. Camille did not dare apologize. Any words she could offer now would just sound completely hollow. She quietly left her sleek business card on the workbench near his thermos. "When you're ready, no signatures required. Just call." She turned to leave. Near the hangar doors, a little girl wearing round glasses walked in, clutching a sketchbook tightly against her chest. The girl stopped, looked up at the CEO, asking a question with pure childhood seriousness. "Are you that lady who told my dad he parked in the wrong lot?" Camille's throat tightened up for a second. "Yes." Nora did not judge with anger, only with that pure confusion when worldly logic fails. "My dad never parks in the wrong lot. He built this whole pier when I was 2. Young girl walked past the stunned executive without saying another word. "You and I see the lesson." Camille stood at that door, completely humbled. "We both know true power never screams." Suddenly, Camille's screen flashed. Uncle Reggie was calling. Letting it ring, she answered. "Camille, did you lock down that luxury yacht yet?" A tense silence followed. "No, Uncle, I do not have it. And I have questions about the background papers you sent before the bidding even started." The line went quiet, too quiet. The next day, Camille locked herself inside her office. She called her personal attorney on a secure line. No corporate eyes, just total secrecy. "I need a deep search on Captain James Hartwell. Run a check out of Bristol. Find any active maritime tax liens filed against him within the last 24 months. Track down who filed it. Money is no object." He called back 90 minutes later. "I found a federal tax lien against the Hartwell family from last March. It was filed by a fake Delaware shell company called Northeast Maritime. The files look designed to force a quick sale under aggressive maritime laws. Camille, I tracked that company. It leads straight back to her uncle's massive empire, Reginald Vance Holdings. The very people who mocked the quiet man were the ones playing dirty." Camille froze in shock. Her lawyer kept talking. "I checked the official records. The captain does not owe a single dime. His record is clean. He paid his debts years ago. That entire tax lien is a complete lie." She stared out at the harbor, her expensive view suddenly feeling completely worthless. Her uncle was the mastermind behind the whole scheme. He forced the captain's yacht onto that flashy auction block. He hid the humble owner's right of first refusal, a legal safety net the greedy shark knew was there. It was a perfect trap. If she won the auction, she would ruin her own company with massive debt. And if she lost because she ignored the quiet man she had dismissed. Let's look at the trap. Her arrogant dismissal of the simple pickup driver would prove she lacked any real wisdom or leadership. The broadcast of her public humiliation would become the ultimate blackmail tool against her. She bypassed her corrupt board entirely. Camille quickly dialed the honest auctioneer directly. Mara Quinn answered from a cold, quiet parking structure in Newport. "I cannot talk openly here," Mara warned, her voice low and careful. "Forget the shipyard. Go find attorney Joseph Cowan at 84 Hope Street in Bristol. He served the humble captain with quiet loyalty for 15 long years. Tell him I sent you." Camille wondered why this woman was helping her. A heavy sigh came. "I am not helping you, I am helping Wyatt. That gentle father refuses to fight. He will ruin himself just to protect his little girl. I will not let them destroy him again, lying dead." That afternoon, Camille drove her expensive, flashy car back to Bristol seeking the truth. Inside a simple, unpretentious office, 71-year-old Joseph Cowan handed over the fabricated legal document. He showed her the real tax settlement from 2020, fully signed and stamped. "The captain paid every single penny," Cowan said. "They knew there was no debt. They knew, miss, this was not a mistake, it was a setup." Leaving his humble office, she walked along the docks of the working harbor. "You and I can finally see true power." At the dock's end sat the underestimated father and his daughter, completely at peace. His little girl quietly held her sketchbook. "You and I often forget that true power whispers." He sat quietly, mending a net. While his daughter chattered, Wyatt answered her with absolute calm. The bay reflected a freezing, golden October light as 4 in the afternoon approached. The proud, wealthy CEO stopped at the gravel path, too arrogant to call out. Without her waving a hand, Wyatt sensed her presence from 40 meters away and looked up. He saw her but didn't wave, keeping his focus entirely steady on his little girl. He watched her with the steady gaze of a giant holding all the cards. Nora suspected nothing. Camille finally nodded, forced to respect the immense weight of the man she had dismissed. She turned back to her car, driving home in total, heavy silence with the radio off. The child's words echoed in her head. My dad built that pier when I was 2. She couldn't understand why the words of this simple man's daughter cut so deep. Thursday morning in the elite boardroom on the 34th floor. Let's watch how the insecure overcompensate. Reggie flaunted a custom suit worth thousands. Camille sat in elegant silk, presenting her flawless quarterly corporate report for 7 minutes. She covered Northeast acquisitions, the West Coast charters, and major profits from the London marina. The financial numbers were absolutely undeniable. Reggie smiled falsely, thanking her before ordering his staff to play the secret footage. The screen lit up with edited clips from the high-stakes luxury yacht auction. First, Camille standing up with the smug, arrogant smile of someone who judged too soon. Then, her face falls as the auctioneer reveals the unassuming pickup driver was the billionaire buyer. Reggie cruelly played her leaked audio right over the clip for the board to hear. Her voice echoed, "Only Hartwell could stop me here, and Hartwell has been dead for 4 years." Board members gasped in shock, while Reggie smugly folded his hands, thinking he had won. He declared, "I propose we launch a formal review of executive judgment. Our shareholders deserve nothing less than that honest conversation." 2 junior board members, installed by Reggie 3 years ago, nodded along like obedient puppets. Camille kept her composure, refusing to even look at her scheming, arrogant uncle. Addressing the room, she calmly replied, "I will not contest this action. However, I propose we postpone this review by exactly 14 days. In those 2 weeks, my uncle and I will audit the files he sent before the luxury yacht auction. Those files contain a federal tax lien that the IRS has zero record of actually issuing." The entire boardroom went dead silent. Reggie's face twitched, a micro-expression of sheer panic gone in a second. He quickly forced a slick smile. "I am sure that is just a clerical error. Then a joint audit should clear everything up in one afternoon." Camille stated coldly, "The motion to postpone carries 5-2. This is where we see pride finally shatter. Locked inside, she did what she never wanted to do. She dialed the mysterious, unassuming power player. The line rang exactly 4 times. A loud belt sander stopped grinding in the background. "Hartwell, I need you not to inherit that lien. I need you to press federal charges against my uncle. I will provide the proof." 6 seconds of total silence. "You are only calling because you cannot survive this without my help," she admitted. "Yes. And because my uncle ruined your family long before he ever targeted me." After a heavy pause, he said, "I will call my lawyer, no promises." The call ended, leaving Camille staring silently at her phone. Just then, Brenda knocked softly, carrying in a hot coffee tray. For the first time all week, the arrogant Camille did not demand a single extra thing. She simply murmured her thanks. Brenda stared at her in silence, completely stunned by the change. "Let us look closer," as Wyatt set his phone down. Nora sat at the table sketching a simple tugboat, softly asking her father who that was. Without turning from the window, he replied, "Just someone learning to look past outward appearances." Nora nodded gently, accepting his wise response, and returned quietly to her drawing. 4 days later, Mara Quinn abruptly walked away from her post at Hellington and Crow. Driving a remarkably modest gray sedan to Bristol, she met the unassuming Wyatt and the humbled Camille inside Cowan's office. The once arrogant CEO had been waiting there since 8 a.m., reviewing the joint claim Cowan drafted. Outside, a freezing October wind off the harbor kept rattling the front windows. Mara slid another folder across the table, far removed from that flashy auction file. Just a simple manila envelope, its edges worn soft from anxious hands. "Back in 2020, she whispered, "I spent the final 18 months of Captain Hartwell's life serving as his private secretary. He quietly signed a secret codicil in the spring of that year. It never passed through probate. He strictly ordered me to keep it completely hidden. He told me to only bring it forward if the ship faced an unexpected, hostile forced liquidation." Opening it, she revealed 4 handwritten pages penned by the legendary old captain himself. It established a massive trust holding $50 million in liquid funds for emergencies. Payable instantly to Wyatt James Hartwell, set aside solely for one crucial rescue mission. Saving his beloved ship from forced liquidation, backed by a secret right of first refusal. a legal claim secretly pre-filed right against the vessel's hull at Hellington and Crow. The final page bore the captain's raw, personal handwriting written in simple black ink. Reginald Vance approached me in 2019, wanting 30% of the company. I flatly declined. He took the rejection poorly. If you are reading this, his patience has finally run out. Protect my son, protect the boat. Wyatt, a man of quiet depth, stood entirely still. He read his father's simple, powerful words twice, then calmly walked over to the window. 2 floors below, sweet little Nora stood on the street, holding their kind neighbor's hand. He watched his daughter with absolute certainty. Truly strong, modest men do not need to cry. The humbled CEO slowly reached across the table, placing her hand flat over the legacy document. She avoided touching Wyatt's hand, or Mara's either, just resting on the paper, shielding it from the draft as she spoke to Mara very softly. You were terrified. That is not the real sin. The true sin would have been keeping it hidden. But you delivered it today. Mara's tense shoulders finally collapsed and she wept in total silence. Wyatt finally turned from the window, gently assuring Mara, I do not blame you at all. Here you and I witness a deep shift. He finally used Camille's actual first name. Camille, I will bring federal charges against your uncle, not because of you. It is for my father. The humbled woman nodded, fully accepting this quiet man's authority. The unassuming man grabbed his phone, dialing Cowan's son over at the federal prosecutor's office, securing an ironclad and urgent appointment for first thing on Monday morning. Wire fraud, maritime deception, and conspiracy. 3 massive counts written on Cowan's quiet notepad. Wyatt politely escorted Mara to the door, showing his natural, quiet respect. Cowan headed downstairs to lock up the heavy iron street gate. Camille slipped the priceless legacy back into that cheap folder, packed her bag, and looked up. Wyatt stood there, unassuming yet powerful. You and I both know who truly owns the room now. Listen closely. He watched her quietly, with no judgment, contempt, or suspicion in his eyes. For once, his walls were completely down. He simply held her gaze. She didn't blink. By Monday morning, federal prosecutors officially accepted that critical maritime filing. The investigation exploded instantly because that underlying lien involved serious, high-level federal paperwork. By Monday afternoon, Reggie Vance finally realized the truth. By Monday evening, panicked, he scrambled to call a Wednesday morning board meeting. His excuse? The Vance Maritime CEO was secretly cooperating with a massive federal probe targeting a top board member without warning anyone. Wednesday morning came. Camille walked in with 4 heavy hitters Reggie never expected to see. Joseph Cowan wore a sharp charcoal suit, carrying the crucial codicil inside a sealed evidence sleeve. Marcus Jennings arrived in a navy chalk stripe suit, holding the final lien audit. A brilliant forensic accountant from Providence. His name was Dale Verity, tweed jacket, glasses, and a complex shell company diagram under his arm. And then came Wyatt Hartwell. For the first time ever, the man actually wore a suit. Dark gray, single-breasted, 2 buttons, no pocket square. The fabric was pure quality but completely unpretentious. A Hope Street tailor cut it for him before his wife got sick, and it still fit him like a glove. Camille noticed his old shoes. They were worn yet polished to a brilliant shine. Reggie spotted Wyatt and instantly froze solid in his leather chair. Helen Ostrom, the stoic chairwoman who served that maritime family for 21 long years, presided. She recognized Cowan from her father's funeral and gave him the floor immediately. Verity needed only 14 minutes to calmly guide everyone through the hidden shell corporate structure. Northeast Maritime to Anguilla, then a Cayman entity ending at Reginald Vance Holdings LLC, just 3 slides. Plain and direct. You and I know that real truth never needs flashy packaging. Cowan followed up with the codicil, alongside Captain Hartwell's formal signed accusation. Jennings delivered the final blow, a fake lien and IRS proof that the debt was a lie. Reggie desperately clawed for his only remaining weapon, sheer arrogance. Mr. Hartwell, he sneered. You're just a former enlisted guy struggling to raise a kid. With all respect, you have absolutely zero understanding of complex corporate finances. Wyatt didn't even bother to raise his voice. I was a lieutenant commander in the Navy, Naval Architecture, MIT 96. 3 propulsion patents. I read shell structures for fun. You stick with me. Nobody even breathed. 2 of the board members Reggie personally handpicked could only stare down at the table. Helen Ostrom immediately called the vote 5-2. Reginald Vance was ordered to step down immediately, banned from the board pending federal charges. Camille secured her CEO position with total backing. Reggie slowly stood up. He grabbed his expensive designer jacket off the chair, not even bothering to fold it. At the door, he finally paused. "Your father would have been deeply disappointed in you, Camille." Camille didn't even look up from her papers. "My father was your brother. He would have been terribly ashamed of you, too." The heavy door clicked shut. Camille and Wyatt stepped into the elevator, heading up 2 floors instead of down. Up on the 36th floor was a quiet private observation deck reserved only for tenants. Surrounded by glass, the massive harbor spread out below them in the dull afternoon light. They approached the rail in silence. You see, the most extraordinary minds never need to boast. Truly powerful people never have to force things. For once, Camille simply rested her hand over his on the railing. There was no tight grip, none of her usual control. She just let her hand rest there in peace. For one long second, that weight remained. Wyatt, a man of silent, true strength, did not pull away. He did not turn his hand to hold hers. They simply stood there, quietly looking out over the harbor. "You did not have to attend this meeting," she said. "The federal paperwork was already more than enough. They questioned your judgment because of what you said to me back in that dusty old parking lot. That slip was on you, but it should not ruin a career. I wanted the board to see who I actually trust." Wyatt did not answer. He just lifted his hand from the rail, not rejecting her, just moving on. He turned toward the elevator doors. "I need to go collect Nora from school." The doors slid closed. Camille stood there alone at the railing for 2 whole minutes. She did not cry, she did not even smile. Staring at her 47 flashy marinas, she realized true wealth lived in his single humble shipyard in Bristol. 2 weeks went by, and that massive federal lawsuit still dragged on. But by Monday, Reggie was finally indicted. On Tuesday, a quiet judge ordered the Nora Bell returned to her true rightful owner. No $90 million bids, just a simple signature on paper. The massive ship belonged to Wyatt Hartwell, and he sailed her back home himself. Wednesday brought a calm tide. This simple man could have easily navigated those 48 miles blindfolded in an old wooden rowboat. He kept his crew small, just 4 men. 3 of them were tough Navy veterans. The last was Joseph Cowan, who only asked to stand on deck for their first hour out of the harbor. Then he wanted to be dropped off at Castle Hill just so he could walk the remaining way while smoking a special cigarette he had saved since 1996. Nora waited on the old Bristol pier, wearing her bright yellow coat and small round glasses. She held a wooden sign she made the night before, painted with simple blue letters saying, "Welcome home." Camille was never actually invited to this. She showed up anyway, no flashy luxury cars, no expensive Bentley. She just took a normal train to Providence and caught a cheap taxi to the local harbor. As we both know, true status never needs to show off. She stood 30 meters back in a simple black coat she bought years ago. The great yacht glided silently against the dock bumpers without making a single sound. Thick ropes flew out. Wyatt stepped onto the deck, walking calmly toward the wooden gangway. Nora bounced with excitement and ran. Wyatt caught his little girl in his arms, lifting her gently down onto the old wooden dock. She pressed the freshly painted sign flat against his chest with both of her tiny hands. Then she leaned back, looked over his broad shoulder, and pointed. "Who is that lady in the black coat?" Wyatt turned to look. Camille was still standing exactly where she had first stopped. 30 meters away, her hands resting quietly at her sides. He placed Nora back on the wooden dock and kneeled down to her level. "That is the woman I told you about. The one who is finally learning how to truly see people." Nora nodded with that same serious, intense look a 9-year-old has when facing something important. Then, without even asking her dad, she walked those 30 meters straight toward Camille all by herself. Camille stood frozen. Nora stopped right in front of her, looked up and said, "My dad fixed this pier back in 2002. Do you want to see the best part?" The wealthy executive could not say a word for 2 whole seconds. Finally, she nodded, and Nora gently took her hand. Wyatt followed them quietly, staying just 4 steps behind. He did not rush to catch up, nor did he try to guide his daughter. At the far edge of the pier, new wood met the original weathered teak faded by 40 years of sea and wind. "Together, you and I watch as little Nora knelt." The once arrogant CEO placed one hand on the warm teak. "This is where Dad lets me sit and draw. My mom used to sit here." The humbled executive knelt beside her, letting her expensive designer coat drag on the dirty deck. She did not offer a hollow apology. "We both know a child sees right through fake empty words." She quietly admitted, "Thank you for showing me." The underestimated billionaire stood 4 steps back, silent. This mysterious buyer in his old clothes did not even look at the sea. Real wealth doesn't need to show off. He only watched his daughter on the warm teak. For 4 long years, nobody but little Nora had ever sat on that sacred spot on the pier. After a quiet minute, Nora sprang up and ran back toward the massive luxury yacht. She shouted to the crew to see the bridge, while Camille slowly stood up. The unassuming tycoon held his ground, quietly asking, "Did you take the train?" "I did not want to drive today." He gave a single nod. "I will drive you to Providence later," she agreed. They walked toward the massive vessel in total silence, perfectly in sync yet keeping their distance. Far down at the edge of the public pier, Mara Quinn and Joseph Cowan stood watching them walk away. Mara had resigned from her high-paying job just 1 week prior. He handed her cheap coffee, leaving us to wonder, where does this surprising story end? Mara quietly studied the unassuming billionaire, the humbled executive, and the girl in the yellow coat. Exactly where it deserves to end, Joseph, not a second faster. A week later, the understated billionaire hosted a surprisingly simple ceremony on his grand luxury yacht. This maritime tradition was incredibly ancient. When a legendary vessel finally returns to its rightful owner, you never change the name. You simply honor it. The true owner invited 9 guests. Joseph, Mara, 2 Navy veterans, 3 old neighbors who knew his father, Nora and Camille. Shedding her arrogant corporate armor, Camille arrived wearing just a simple, modest sweater. She brought a simple gift, a brand new sketch pad bought at a small shop in Providence. Nothing flashy, just quality paper completely perfect for a child's charcoal drawings. She quietly handed it to the girl at the gangway. Nora accepted it the way children receive a modest gift that changes their entire life later on. With a silent nod, she opened it and immediately started drawing. Up at the bow, the quiet billionaire rested his hand on the brass nameplate. True power never needs to boast. He skipped the speech, saying only 9 sentences. "My grandfather laid this hull in 1958. My father finished her. My mother named her. Belle was my late wife. Nora is my daughter. This vessel will not be renamed. She is finally back home where she belongs. Thank you for coming." Joseph poured cheap champagne into simple, ordinary paper cups. For just 9 people. He handed the first cup to Mara, who raised it. To Captain James Hartwell, 9 humble paper cups rose and fell in unison. The cold wind swept the quiet deck and nobody dared to break the heavy silence. Little Nora gently tugged Camille's hand. She wanted to show her the lower cabin, where the wood smelled strongly of cedar oil. As they headed down, "Stick with me here." The quiet billionaire turned to his old friend. "I am officially restarting our family shipbuilding production line next year. We will build 2 massive hulls, and I will need a trusted local partner." Cowan saw right through the fancy suits. Voss Maritime, they own 47 luxury berths. "I own 1 modest yard. This is strictly business, nothing flashy about it." Cowan just nodded. Those with real quiet wealth never need to explain themselves. Below deck, little Nora was effortlessly capturing the master craftsmanship of the luxury cabin. The girl sketched rapidly while the powerful CEO watched in silence. "Look at this with me." Nora turned the page, drawing a stunning superyacht without even looking up. A humble, powerful man standing firm, a fancy, expensive woman hesitating a few steps back. A young girl holding her sketchbook right between them. "You can keep this if you want," Nora offered gently. "I drew it for you." The proud executive accepted the priceless drawing. The elite CEO folded the sketch carefully, tucking that beautiful drawing deep inside the secure pocket of her designer handbag. The prestigious spot she usually reserved for million-dollar business deals. Wyatt finally walked down the steps to lead them back up. Nora ran up first, leaping 2 steps at a time. The stiff executive followed slowly. Right at the bottom step, Wyatt reached out to gently guide her arm. A natural, confident touch from a master who had been guiding elites safely on the water for 30 years. The fiercely independent executive did not actually need assistance. Yet she let his calloused hands steady her for a moment longer. Then they went upstairs. 6 weeks later, in mid-December, the arrogant Reggie Vance faced criminal charges in federal court. His massive fraud trial would take years, but the initial charges ruined his public image. Naturally, the Vance Maritime stock price suffered a sudden sharp drop, before quietly stabilizing right back to its original powerhouse value. The board of directors quickly rallied behind Camille, securing their immensely profitable financial future. All 47 of their premium yacht harbors continued operating normally. Wyatt quietly secured a massive new contract for 2 custom superyachts, set for delivery in 2028. Officially, it was just business. The deeper truth remained hidden. Imagine this scene with me. A freezing northeast wind was whipping aggressively right off the bay. Wyatt worked alone at his modest shipyard, drafting a new hull design on cheap tracing paper, weighted down with some rusty old paint cans. His daughter was safe with Edith, the kind neighbor who helped raise her after his wife passed. While the girl sketched, the elegant CEO made an unexpected trip out to Bristol. She arrived carrying 2 humble cheap paper cups of warm coffee. She parked her sleek luxury car far away in the lot, deliberately keeping several empty spaces between them and his battered old pickup truck. Walking on freezing gravel and expensive designer heels, she confidently pushed open his massive wooden hangar door. Wyatt glanced up calmly. The unassuming, immensely wealthy man did not even bother to stand. For the very first time in their story, he smiled, just a soft, knowing look in his eyes. "You still remember I drink it black." She set the simple cups on his cold workbench. "I have remembered since day one." He placed his pencil down next to his master designs. "What brings you here?" "Nothing." The elite executive stared directly into his eyes. "It is the first time I have not come seeking solutions to some business crisis." A long, silent pause followed. Wyatt carefully folded his master blueprints, removed the weights, and finally stood. He slowly walked over to the giant hangar doors and pushed them wide open. Together we could feel that crisp, cold winter light. His beautiful custom yacht sat quietly in the freezing harbor, glowing warm inside while Nora and her neighbor sketched. "Would you stay for dinner?" The elegant woman simply nodded in agreement. No words were needed. They walked the docks as true equals, matching each other step for step. Wyatt ignored her hand. True power never has to reach out first. The cold wind flushed the proud executive's face. Halfway across the luxury deck, Wyatt stopped. She stopped right beside him. He ignored her, looking out at the freezing bay. "My wife passed away 4 years ago," he murmured, his voice dangerously quiet. "I never thought I would stand here with anyone again." She looked away, humbled. "You don't have to stand here with me. You can just walk away." "I know," the quiet billionaire replied. "I am not leaving." Silence fell between them. Through the cold wind and glowing lights, his daughter's soft laughter drifted across the deck before he turned. He didn't bother kissing her. Instead, this underestimated man slowly raised his hand, brushing his rough knuckles against her cheek for 2 seconds. He let his hand drop. The once ruthless woman refused to cry. She nodded once, accepting the harsh truth they both now fully understood. Together, they walked down the pier toward the massive ship he now owned. Up in the luxury cabin, his daughter called out, "Dad, Miss Camille, I finished the room." "You and I both know nobody expected this massive power shift at the auction that December. Not the quietly wealthy single dad returning to reclaim his father's ship, nor the arrogant executive who once mocked him for driving an old pickup truck.